Foxclan Publications. Stepping into the light.
Hello, everyone. This is Matt of the Authors Podcast, Stepping into the Light. I would just like to take a moment to ask everyone that is watching this video to like and to share and to also subscribe. That helps us out tremendously so that we can bring more people to our channel and get the message out about what we are doing here. It would mean a great deal to Wesley, Tim, Joe, and I if you would do that. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you continue to tune in every week. Thank you, and our podcast is coming up next.
Welcome to episode 4.
I'm Matt.
I'm Wesley.
We're glad to be here today. And Wesley, today we're going to talk a little bit about your book, the one that was headlined in the episode you had mentioned when we did our episode 1. Tell me a little bit today about your background that led to this book.
The background has to do mostly with paranormal, of course. And the book is kind of where everything starts, because it's called House of Echoes, The Complete True Story. Which it is. The book I wrote about the family experience that we had when I lived in Lowell, Arkansas, 1983. Several people have asked questions online because they've seen the episode of A Haunting that was about my family, which is the same story, just a little bit different.
And you say that it's a little bit different. What are some differences between The Haunting and the book itself?
In the book, it goes along with what I'm going to say. The episode of A Haunting, they did a good job considering they only had 44 minutes to put everything, to try to put the story together. But they had to take people out, and then also they did that for, financial as well, I'm sure. But my sister, Mary, which unfortunately is no longer with us, she was able to be a part of it, and so was my mother. On the episode, they showed that it was me and Mary and Mom and Dad that moved into this house. Basically, that was all the kids that Mom and Dad had, which is not true at all. I actually have 5 other siblings, 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Unfortunately, after events of the day, I guess I could say, everything, I only have 1 sister that's still living and 1 brother. And now my oldest brother, when we moved in, he was, I don't know the exact age, but he was old enough, he had his own family, and he lived just down probably 3 blocks away. And then my older sister, Carol, the oldest of the girls, she was married, she had a little girl at the time, which they didn't mention her or the little girl at all. But they lived about 1.5 miles away. And they also didn't talk about Mary. She would babysit Carol's little girl, Lisa, every night from about 5 p.m. or so to about 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's when Carol would come pick Lisa up. But they also didn't talk about my sister Barb, who moved in with us probably a month before we moved out, 3 weeks, something like that. She needed somewhere to go because her and her boyfriend and little boy, they were living in a place in Springdale, which is about 5 miles away. They had their own haunting issues going on. It's just needed somewhere to go because she seen a black figure, and this black figure scratched her. So it scared her, so she wanted out. My dad said, you can always come home, but it'd be much better here because we're having our own issues. But, the haunting itself, some of the differences in the actual hauntings, they showed the Bible being thrown from my dad's hands after he was reading out of it. That didn't happen to my dad. That actually happened to Barb's boyfriend at the time. His name was Ralph. But of course, haunting didn't have him in. So they made that seem like that happened to Dad. And with them running out of time, they didn't talk about me waking up and seeing a little girl standing over my bed. I described this little girl to my parents. That she looked like Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie because the way she was dressed. But I also told them that she had braces on her legs, which was kind of strange, especially for me as a child, but it still scared the crap out of me either way. There was so much more to the story than what the haunting was able to actually put on.
And why is it that you think that they only ended up showing you and your sister, pretty much?
It was due to time constraints and lack of money, I'm sure. because they were a small production company. But they did try to do good with what they had. Now, all the things they showed to happen on the episode did happen. They may have just happened to somebody different. Like with the book and Dad, he had some small things early on that was going on, but he didn't want to talk about it. Family had a barbecue within the first week or so of us moving in, and they talked about, kind of showed the barbecue a little bit on Haunting, but what they didn't talk about or show was at the end of the barbecue. It seemed like it was at the end. Everyone was kind of getting ready to go their own separate ways and stuff. Pulls up out front and asks my dad, "Hey, are you the man of the house?" My dad goes, "Yeah." He goes over, Dad walks over, and the guy whispers something in his ear. And Dad didn't tell us what he whispered in his ear until right before we moved out. And what he whispered in his ear was, "If you love your wife and kids, you will get out of this house immediately. It needs to be burned down to the ground." Of course, Dad thought, just people talking crap. Later that night, Dad gets up in the middle of the night, goes to the bathroom, and the master bedroom, the bathroom, it was right next to it, but it wasn't connected. So he went out of the master bedroom, stepped into the hallway, stepped into the bathroom for a minute. He's in there doing his business, and he just happens to look, and there's a large blue ball floating up the stairs toward him. He continued to walk for a minute, and then it ended up going and floating into the attic door. Dad went back to bed. He thought, you know what? I just had too many drinks. So there's always something for him to excuse it. Sometime later, my brother Jim was still there, because he originally moved in too, right away, because he already had plans to move into Arizona with family. But Mom needed to go to the store, and Dad liked to take his naps when he was off work, so Jim took Mom to the store, and I went with him. Mary was somewhere else, so it was just Dad in the house, and he's laying in the master bedroom trying to go to sleep. He probably did start to fall asleep a little bit, because when he was 100% awake, he felt something rubbing his hand, rubbing his feet. And he said there were cold hands, and he looked up, and there was nobody there. So of course he hurried up, got up, went downstairs, sat in the kitchen.
I think as any of us would do.
So he still didn't really believe something was going on there. Now Mom, that she was working a lot, but she had things happening here and there, kind of like Dad, nothing major. She would hear voices. One of the first things she heard was a voice that said, "We're going to get the one looking down the hall," and the other one too, which Mom said that was her, because she would always lay in bed and just stare out, look down the hall, and the door was open. And of course the other one for you was Dad. Mary had a lot of things happen to her, just like they did show. She had a dream about babies being. They kind of showed that a little bit, but they kept it rated G on Haunting. But Mary woke up. She said these babies were basically being and then thrown down a chute. And when she woke up, she was downstairs basically catching these babies, and that's what scared her to death. And that was the very first night that anyone stayed in the house. That was her and Jim.
Now, how old was she when she had this dream?
Mary would have been just over 17, I do believe.
But even for a 17-year-old, that's not a normal dream to have.
Yeah, I think she just turned 17 or maybe just turned 18. One of the other. It's been a while since I wrote the book, and so I don't really remember the dates and ages as good as I used to, because, the stroke I had in June kind of helped with that a little bit. But, Jim didn't have nothing happen. He didn't have no dream or anything. The very next day, me and Mom and Dad come with a load of stuff. And that's when we basically moved into this house. Almost right away, after things were moved in, we had French doors that led to the hall that went upstairs, or you can go right through the French doors, and that would take you down a set of stairs, go into the large basement. These French doors, of course, were, the glass doors, and you lock one, and it locks both of them is the way it worked. Well, Mary's herself watching the movie, and she hears the door handles rattle on the French doors. A few minutes later, she sees one start to open up. So she goes over there, shuts it, makes sure, and locks it, and then makes the little check, make sure it's all locked, make sure it wasn't a gust of wind or something, and it wasn't. A few minutes later, they opened all the way up. And needless to say, Mary took off running, hauled ass upstairs. She ran upstairs and jumped in her bed. This was before she was sleeping in the attic. It was at first Jim was sleeping in the attic. So she went to that little bedroom on the other side of the bathroom. She's in there hiding underneath the covers, scared to death. And then she hears footsteps, the door open, and then it's Mom. Mom's bitching at her. "Mary, what the hell are you doing running up these stairs? Your dad's trying to sleep. You need to go down there and shut off all the lights and the TV." So for Mary, that was like walking down the Green Mile. Have to go back down the stairs and do all that. But she did. But Mom had no idea what was going on, really. So she thought Mary was just being a night owl. And later on, Mary had a lot of other things happen. As we're recording this, little things will make us jump now.
So, in your opinion, would you say that the events in The Haunting were a true story, or is there some other explanation that you say you've come to?
I think with everything that Haunting, put on film was all true. And even, as I've gotten older after all this, I know for a fact paranormal exists. There is no other explanations for why any of these things were happening. They talked about it a little bit in Haunting when my Aunt Mary came down. She came down, but she was with her husband and her son and his wife. So it wasn't just her coming down. And the reason she came down is because At that point, Mom and Dad knew something was wrong. And what really did it was Mom started telling Dad, hey, we need help. We need to find some help because of these things are going on. And she explained some of the stuff that was happening to Lisa, which Mary went to give her a bath at one point. She just started going crazy. Mary stepped out of the room to see what Mom wanted, just kind of stuck her kind of halfway in her room, halfway out, just so she could hear what Mom was saying. And then Lisa just started screaming at the top of her lungs. And they didn't get Lisa settled down, so Mary took her off the property. Once she was off the property, she started crying, stopped crying. For several years after that, she'd always say, please no bath, please no bath. There wasn't no marks on her or anything else. We don't know what happened. There was another incident where she was pushing she had a little doll baby carriage that she'd push around. She'd push it, they'd have the French doors open, so she'd push it and she'd go out into the kitchen and come back to the living room, dining room, so like a big circle she could do. He was running back and forth with that. All of a sudden, they didn't see her. They thought, well, at least she should be due back over here by any time. Then they hear her screaming like top of her lungs. So Mom and Mary hurry up to go check on her, and they find her trying to get into the oven. Something scared her so bad, she was trying to get in the oven and hide from it. But as soon as Dad found out what was happening to Lisa, he got angry. He was in the kitchen, and when Mom told him, and he stood up, he said, it's bad enough that you have to work, that you have to mess with my wife and my kids, but goddamn you, leave my grandkids alone. As soon as he said that, the dishes started rattling. And my mom grabbed him and said, come on, Jesse, we gotta go. And they walked over to the cannery to use the phone. And that's when they started getting over my Aunt Mary. And my uncle worked some really strange shifts, but they were able to come down that night. And I think they got there like 3 a.m., something like that. Because, my aunt, she was just like they talked about. She was an empath. So you could tell the house was haunted for sure. However it happened, she ended up being left alone in the kitchen. So anyway, she's sitting in there. Well, not sitting, she's standing. She has her hair back in a ponytail. And all of a sudden, she felt something lift up her ponytail. She looks around like maybe there was a bug, moth, something, nothing there. And of course, she didn't hear about one of the characters, I should say, that was haunting my sister Mary, which was a man that had a cane, black suit, but she could never see his face. So after my aunt was told about that person or thing, she figured it was that man with the cane just kind of flipping her hair up. A little bit later, everybody comes downstairs. They take her, show her where the bathroom is. While she's in the bathroom, she hears chanting coming from a heat register. So almost immediately, she's convinced there's something going on. And after she hears the different things, everyone's sitting drinking coffee in the dining room. She'd get up and get coffee a couple different times. And when she did, she was seeing a dark figure. And then one of the doors was opening slowly but surely, so she kind of shut it. One of the times, get coffee. Probably 30 minutes later, she got back up. Nobody had been in there, but that door was open. So that's just a few little things that actually happened. Now, where they showed in a haunting that she was upstairs with Mary and she couldn't breathe, now that was true. The difference of it was they didn't find a pentagram like they showed in the episode. And almost right after that, she couldn't breathe. She couldn't catch air. She couldn't nothing. It's almost like something was choking her. And then something started pushing her to where she was being pushed backwards. And Mary got really scared that she was going to be pushed backwards down the stairs. So Mary hurried up and grabbed her arm, and they went as fast as they could to get away from the stairs and then down on the ground level. Before her and my uncle left, they told my dad that, you guys need to move for sure. You guys got to get out of the house. And we did, just like they should. We left, never spent another night in there. We were lucky. Things didn't follow us, but I think a curse has followed us. It followed us because of the fact that a lot of people that stepped foot in that house are no longer with us. They died at young ages. My Aunt Mary, her husband, her son Johnny that was there, he died relatively at an early age. My sister Barb, my sister Mary, of course, my brother Jim, my father, they're all gone. Was it truly a curse? I don't know. It just kind of seems that way. Jim, he didn't have much happen to him. Right before he did leave for Phoenix, he thought me or Mary went through his suitcase. Jim didn't have much happen to him. Worst I think that happened to him was he thought Mary went through his suitcase when he moved to Phoenix, but neither one of us did. He did have some weird dreams when he was staying up in the attic. But I know when Barb was there, she was always really scared that something was watching her. When her boyfriend worked at night, sometimes she had to sleep in that middle bedroom alone, and she absolutely did not want to do that. She was scared, mostly because she could see what was going on with everybody else. And while on the property, her and Mary would fight like cats and dogs. As soon as they were off the property, they were fine. It was crazy. Nothing ever happened to my sister Carol. Kind of thought Mom and Dad were crazy to an extent because nothing was happening to her. She did remember going down getting Dad from the basement because our washer and dryer was down there. And he was fixing something on the washer, and Carol went down there and kind of tapped him on the shoulder, kind of did something on purpose, like a tap, and then boom, She said Dad jumped so bad it was unreal. His face turned pure white. She felt really bad because she scared him as bad as what she did. But that was before she knew what all was going on. But this complete story and timeline is in the book. I got timeline, some of the events that happened from notes from my sister Mary and my Aunt Mary. And of course, talking to some of it, I remembered some I didn't. Like coming home and just having to smell of rotten flesh in the house. We couldn't figure out what the heck it was, but there was something rotten. What was it? Now we know that was a sign of a demon. It was a sulfur rotten flesh. That happened a couple times. Anyway, this is in my book, House of Echoes, The Complete Story. Chance, check it out. It's a good book. I'll give you a lot more detail than what I just did.
Would you say that whole situation, that book you have detailed in the book, influenced you to get into paranormal investigations?
It did, because we had such a hard problem trying to find somebody that could help us. We tried to go to the church. The church basically didn't do jack squat other than laugh at us. And there was Ed and Lorraine Warren at the time, but, did not get a hold of them. So I knew I wanted to study as much as I could about the paranormal, try to help as many families as possible. And we have been able to do that.
Mentioning Ed and Lorraine Warren could have been in a movie had you been able to contact them at this point.
Yeah, possibly.
You wouldn't have been able to foresee that, but And how did you guys come about getting covered by a haunting?
TV? No, it was Facebook. Somebody posted something. They were working with a haunting, and they were looking for more stories. And then I gave them my story, and they were like, yeah. And of course, I found out that I was a paranormal investigator. They was like, hey, do you have any cases? So I ended up getting 2 other cases that we had done, which happened to be 2 bad demonic cases. That would be season 7, episode 7, called Child's Play, and then season 8, episode 1, Heartland Horror. Those are the other 2 episodes.
That'd be a good way for people to see some of your experiences, for sure. Now, you had mentioned your book. Where can people find your book if they want to read it?
Eventually, it's going to be on our website once we get it up and going. Right now, you can find them on Amazon.
And
some bookstores, mostly Amazon right now.
That's House of Echoes, correct?
Correct.
And they can just search that and find that. I've actually done that, so I know for a fact.
Yeah, and House of Echoes 2, full circle, goes into what I talked about, why the family's cursed. It goes into some detail with that, and another case that happened there. I had to do an exorcism of a girl that just happened to walk across that property. That's all I'll say. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit of the true story.
Wesley, it's been great hearing about your story. I know that I've read a portion of your book already. I do intend on finishing that. It is a very, very exciting story if you read through it. I wouldn't recommend reading it all alone in a house that's mostly dark, though. You might get scared. No, I'm just kidding.
That's my whole point.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Glad to hear more about your book. I look forward to finishing that book, and I hope many people listening to this will grab a copy because it's a really interesting book to read. So, thank you for your time.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you.